Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Final Sector podcast. I'm here at the start of the video again just to mention a couple of things. Firstly, my complete ineptitude of being able to do any sort of intro actually when we're recording. So this is our intro. And secondly, why the video is 2 weeks later than it really should be. So it's been about 3 weeks since our last video. For about 2 weeks, Kyle and I both got very busy, couldn't record anything, and then for the last week I've been very, very ill, so we actually did record a week ago, but none of the editing got done, so it's going up a bit later than usual. In saying that, we do have a lot of other videos in the works, so the next two that we're recording, first one is our driver predictions for 2022, which will be a fun one, and then something a little bit shorter, a little bit different, kind of going to keep it a secret, but I'm hoping to stitch up Kyle a little bit with that one, so keep an eye out for that one. That'll probably be one of the next ones. We've also still got to do our 2021 season predictions, which we're going to combine with the pre-season testing video, and Kyle's also going to be running a Formula 2, Formula 3 season preview video as well at some point, so lots of videos to look forward to. I've also been told by Kyle that our new logo, not the Blue Flags one, but our new one is very, very close to done, so that'll be up very, very soon. And I also just wanted to take this moment to thank everyone that's interacted with our videos, whether you've subscribed, liked, watched, commented, whatever. It's the numbers aren't much, most people would look at that and laugh, but considering I've only put up 2 videos, I'm pretty happy, and I'm sure Kyle would say the same thing about, how well we've done so far and that people are generally enjoying it. So, if you like the videos, if this is your first one and you're watching and you like this video, you like the podcast format, or you like any of the ideas that I just mentioned, please subscribe, like and comment, all the good stuff. And also follow our Twitter, at Final Sector YT. We are going to be using that a bit more, particularly once the season starts as well. So, but that's it for now. Enjoy the video. Yeah, I guess we'll get right into it. The first thing I sort of wanted to talk about, it's almost a follow-on from one of the topics we talked about a couple of weeks ago, which is the Albert Park layout that's going to be changed. They have now confirmed that, and it's basically everything we talked about in that first video. So all of those, I guess, I'd say rumors, but basically all of it was true. So they've already widened the pit lane by 2 meters. So that's literally, they call that phase 1. That's already been completed. So phase 2, which is the big one, which is something that they're going to be doing over the next few months, is reprofiling that turn 910 to turn it into a really fast sort of right and then left along the lake. So instead of being the tight right-hander into the sweeping left, it's now just going to be one big old S. I did find a picture of like the proposed layout, but it's really small and it's really hard to see, but I couldn't find any other pictures of it. But I'll see if I can put it up, and you can try and I'll circle where the change is. But yeah, that's the big one that's going to change. The idea is that entry speed into the turn 11-12 complex, the chicane, is going to be higher, creating more overtaking opportunities. The right-hander at turn 13 is going to be reprofiled with a wider entry and additional camber, and then turns 1, 3, 6, and 15 are also going to be made wider as well. So it basically, like, all of these is basically they're saying we want more overtaking, like we don't want it to be a single file all the way through. So yeah, pretty much exactly what we talked about a couple of weeks ago. So,
pretty much, yeah.
The other part was phase 3, which is the complete resurfacing of the circuit with the more aggressive asphalt. That was to promote tyre wear. That's apparently not happening this year. That's going to be happening for next year. So that's not happening for this year's Grand Prix. So we won't see the tyre wear. We'll just see the sort of first part of it for this year. But I'm excited to see it. I'm hoping that it'll create a pretty exciting race. You never know.
I think it'll because it's all about trying to. They've got that new DRS zone towards, I forget which corner it was, but basically towards the end, and normally you go through that fast
Towards
left
13.
right-hander.
Yeah.
And then you get the DRS, but because of the nature of the run down the lake and then 11-12, dirty air kind of thing and would just string them apart a bit too much and they just couldn't close up.
Yeah.
So this whole thing is saying, look, you haven't got that crappy exit now that everyone always gets wriggly out of and gets string out. Instead, they can stay together through that whole area, chase up, even get the draft through, the 11-12, which would be amazing to see cars really close through there, and then actually get some better overtakes through there.
Yeah.
And as well, the changes to the pit lane mainly to promote so they can get the higher... the pit speed there, because we've seen before how the pit lane there can be quite drastic, and you can lose quite a lot in there, and especially if you get lucky with a safety car, you can really get lucky by taking advantage of that. So it reduces that bit, and means that as well it promotes maybe more, if, as you say, they're reprofiling the track in stage 3 as well in terms of the asphalt. So it means that if there's more tyre wear and the pit stop is less of a penalty, then it might incentivize you to stop 2-3 times maybe rather than just the default 1 stop.
Yep.
So lots of little changes that I think coming in, we'll get a taste of it this year, as you say, hopefully. But even with the new regulations, I think new regulations and the new changes will actually make it quite a spicy little circuit.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Fingers crossed.
Well, I think that one of the things that I just completely forgot about that third DRS zone. I guess with, that happened a couple of years ago where they're like, we need more DRS zones. So they put a third one on that Australian, on that straight between 12 and 13. And it really did nothing. You don't see overtakes there because that turn 13, it's just so tight.
It helps close them up a bit, really.
It closes them up. Yeah, it closes them up for the, the pit straight. But outside of that, it didn't really do anything. But now that they're widening that turn 13, it could actually, and because the speeds through the part before it are going to be so high, and they're coming down there, I guess there could be overtaking opportunities there. That's obviously what they're going for, is that turn 13 is now going to be just a better overtaking opportunity. Staying on the Grand Prix, the Oz Grand Prix, is they're looking at possibly keeping the November date or the late year date with the Australian Grand Prix and swapping with the MotoGP. So traditionally it's been the Australian Grand Prix's been at the start of the year, the Formula 1 Grand Prix, and then towards the end of the year they have the MotoGP race. So they kept them, pretty far apart. But obviously with the Australian Grand Prix now happening in November, both the races are going to be happening towards the end of the year.
Is this the one at Phillip Island?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... they are looking at, they said there were the 4 options, which are basically having them exactly the same as it were, one at the start, one at the end, basically doing a complete swap, so having MotoGP at the start, Formula 1 at the end, or having them both at the start or both at the end of the year. So there's talks that one of those 4 things might happen. Apparently none of them are off the table yet, but they said ideally... they've said in the past that ideally they would like to keep them apart just because of, trying to organise two big races, I guess, in the same city. International
events,
yeah, in the same city within, the span of maybe 1 or 2 months. Logistically, it's not ideal, but it is something that they're looking into. So, who knows, nothing may change at all, but there is the possibility that Australia could not be the season opener as of next year, so it'll be towards the end of the year. It is a bit weird because it's Australia being obviously the very start. It's just sort of out of place because you come to Australia and it's you're over to Bahrain, and then you're back to China. So it's sort of, you're a bit all over the place. Where I have noticed that they always try and keep the Europe races together. They try and keep the United States races all together. With the new calendar, that might not happen quite as well, but they've always tried to keep those races all together, and then they're just we're going to Australia, and then we're going halfway across the border to Bahrain immediately. So I guess in terms of Formula 1 trying to lessen the travel, it could, if they could try and find something that's maybe closer to a lot of the Asian races, maybe closer to Japan and Singapore and those ones, it could be a little better for Formula 1 as well. I don't know. That's just something I thought about, but I'm not sure what direction they'll go. Like I said, there's a good chance that nothing will change. But
there's still a chance.
And,
I guess on the positive side is at least if they are moving, it's not like they're getting rid of it. So as long as they still have it, I'm happy.
yeah, absolutely.
Not biased at all.
With all this going on in terms of the reprofiling and and all that, it seems like it's going to be around for many years to come. So it's just, I guess, figuring out where it's going to happen, or when it's going to happen, rather. One of the other big things is, it's been a big thing for a while in Formula 1, is both Bernie Ecclestone and Liberty Media, there's no secret. They want 2 races in the US, and they have for a long time, but for whatever reason, logistically, they just haven't been able to get it. And there's been a few tracks that have popped up with the possibility of them either going to or going back to in Formula 1 to get that second race. And Indianapolis was one that popped up as like a big contender. For those who don't know, Indy has been on the Formula 1 calendar before. I think was it the 90... No, not 95. Was it 2005? Or was it 95? The weather, there was 6 cars running because of the tyre fiasco.
It was in the 2000s.
It was 2000, yeah, so it's probably 2005. That was the big events.
Yeah. The Michelin,
something like that.
Yeah,
something like that. So it was a bit of a farce. I think a lot of people only remember Indy for that, but there is talks that they could...
There was that, and there was, I think it was Scott Speed having one of his kind of performances that sealed his contract up when he was involved in yet another big accident.
One of his...
I think it might have been 07 or... I don't remember which year, but there's not many things I remember other than, as you say, the tyre farce and the big crash and that Scott Speed was in.
Yeah, no one really has, like, good memories of, like, good racing at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
There was some alright racing, to be fair, but...
It's always going to be remembered for that. So they seem to think that enough times passed that maybe they could go back there. But there's a few other ones that have popped up. That's being one of them. For some reason, Vegas popped up. I don't think anyone liked Vegas when it was on the Formula 1 calendar.
It would be a different form.
You would think
there's
so,
been a few different, in different kind of, I guess, forms of them being serious about it, in terms of how they've presented different potential track designs or where they could convert, city areas into circuits. I don't remember where it was. There was one maybe 1 or 2 years ago where they actually properly put forward like a proposal for how they would do it. Because I know a few people like built it up a bit in Assetto Corsa and that and gave it a go.
Okay.
I think there was one that went across like a long bridge or something. So there's been a few that have come in different levels of likelihood. So they really could put it anywhere, and I guess they've already shown, like the kind of Singapore, they can dump it in the middle of the city and run it. So really, the whole of the US is their playground, depending where they want to put it.
America has that many racetracks. Like you got Road America, you got freaking Sebring, you've got all these tracks.
Watkins
Glen, yeah.
Many that F1 have been to as well in the past.
Yeah, exactly.
Different forms.
The one that apparently is the quote most advanced in terms of discussion. It's been on the tables for a while as they really want to go to Miami. They've got the proposed Miami Grand Prix, which there was talks about it coming in for, it was either this year or next year, but COVID pushed that back. Yeah, or pushed it. Yeah, possibly both. But they're trying to strike a deal with, I think it's the Miami Dolphins, the NFL team owner, I think. To try and
you know better than me.
Yeah, sure. to try and basically form a track around their stadium, so that way it doesn't interact with like public roads and things. But apparently that's, in terms of possibility, that one's sort of at the top, with like Indy and a couple of the others. Mainly Miami and Indianapolis are the two that sort of stand out. Indianapolis is a big one because I think Roger Penske bought the circuit back in like 2019. He's a big he's NASCAR
IndyCar and NASCAR.
Well,
Penske's in a lot of things, but
big racing car dude. But yeah, he basically owns the track now, and he's sort of alluded to the fact they might want to get into a bunch of Formula 1 and WEC and a few different things. So that's always a possibility, and the track still holds a Grade 1 FIA rating, which means F1 can still take place there. So, but there's also talks of like the rotation policy with 700 countries all wanting 500 Grand Prix each. The talks of a rotation policy coming in with you can only have so many races a year, where you have we'll have one of these tracks this year, and then we'll have this track the next year, or just interchanging per year. So that is something that could come in if every track they want comes onto the calendar.
Full,
but speaking of new tracks on the calendar, on top of them trying to get that second race in the US, they say that a return to Africa is a priority, which is a big one. I think even like Hamilton's come out and said we need to go back to Africa. It's literally the only continent bar Antarctica that they don't go to. So and it's such a big continent. But I mean they've raced at a couple of countries in Africa. I think South Africa was obviously the biggest one. That would have been the era of sort of Jody Scheckter, wouldn't it? I guess they probably had more reason to sort of go there. But and then I think they've been to Morocco as well. Apparently they're the two countries that they're likely to return to. So they're saying that South Africa remains the most likely. I think even like Bernie Ecclestone, when he ran F1, he'd been pushing for South Africa for a long time. So, and apparently Liberty has sort of taken over that to try and.
Of course, they ran at Kyalami for a bit as well.
But yeah, so that's where the two interests are is South Africa and Morocco right now. But I mean, I definitely agree that they have to get back to Africa in some form. You can't just kind of cut out an entire continent and be like, oh well, we tried. But yeah, I mean, an African country hasn't been on the calendar since '93. Apparently, that was the last South African Grand Prix. So it's been,
which was at Kyalami.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so there's interest going back there. Apparently, the F1 global director of race promotion, who is Chloe Target Adams, there's a lot of stuff that she's come out and said actually, and but basically she's talked about how they want to go back to Africa. She's also said that they haven't given up on Vietnam as well. Obviously, if you know anything about Formula One, you'll know that Vietnam was supposed to be on the calendar, and then COVID happened, and then a lot of political crap in the country happened, so it's sort of not happening right now. But apparently, they're still working with the local government,
to try and get something
the government
together,
to try and get something. So, I know you are excited for Vietnam, but I don't really know anything about it. But you've raced on like F1 game and a few things, and you said you like the track, so
I just think it would have been unique and cool to see it, and to go to a country like that. I definitely prefer it. I'm not going to name any names, but certainly some countries I prefer to go to less than I would Vietnam.
I want 20 races in Australia.
But yes, it's a bit of a shame, but just keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree. I still, I want to see it as well. I don't really know much about the track, but it would be cool to see if they can work with the new government to try and work through those whatever issues that they're still working through. But yeah, we'll see what happens in the sort of mid to long term. I think that's the idea. They're trying to, mid to long term, they're trying to get that on the calendar. So where they're going to fit it with another US Grand Prix and an African Grand Prix and 700 races in Europe, and who knows? But we'll see. I'm sure they've got ideas. Verstappen has a performance clause in his Red Bull contract, which a lot of people made out to be a massive thing, but I read it has been a pretty common thing, which I saw the last time it was used was when Vettel left for Ferrari back in, was it 2014, 15, something like that?
Around that, I think it was.
And apparently he had a performance clause in his, so it's not an uncommon thing,
no.
But it has spurred on a lot of conversation about, particularly with Red Bull now taking on that Honda engine and them developing it themselves, and whether or not that will hold up as well as it has in the past, as in the last couple of years, that Honda engine with them developing themselves. And if the team does drop, will Max just leave? Will he just leave for another team? There's also been talks of him, with Hamilton possibly leaving the sport after next year, only being on the 1-year contract. Could he go to Mercedes? Which, that's always going to be talked about. Max at Mercedes. Oh, that'd be amazing. He's going to wipe the floor with everyone. But yeah, basically Verstappen has this clause in his contract that if the Red Bull performance drops, it's apparently not even related to the power unit, it's just related to Red Bull performance in general. If the performance drop enough, he could exit his contract before he's allowed to leave early, which is, I think, is 2023 he's contracted to, so he could leave early if he wanted to. But I mean, a lot of people, including Christian Horner himself, have said that if he does decide to leave, or if Hamilton decides to leave Mercedes, that Max would be at the top of the list for him to drive there. So it's an entertaining thought to consider, but I feel like the Max Red Bull relationship's pretty good at the moment, so it would take probably a lot for Max to leave, in my opinion. There's always the thought about, what if he was in the best car? How well could he do? There's always going to be that discussion. I think that's the discussion. Imagine if X driver was in the Mercedes, how well could they do? You could talk. You could say that about every driver.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think people are sort of reading more into it than needs to be read into. I think is probably more the thing I'm getting at. So
yes,
I
that hasn't, as you say, it hasn't been that uncommon, and he knows how good he is, and it's easy to say. It's like, well, look, he's added this. If he was confident that he was going to stay in the team regardless of how well they did, then he would just not put it in there. You know what I mean? That's the argument people are putting. And they're trying to say, look, it's the fact that it is in there says something, but I don't know. It might just be a fact that he's still got to think about himself long term. Like, yes, Red Bull have brought him up and everything like that, and he's got to give credit to them, and that's why I think, again, this is more so just a trust thing. It's almost saying, like, I want this in here, and they've just gone, that's fine, like, we'll happily put that in there, because I guess there is a case where if, for example, Hamilton leaves and then Mercedes aren't satisfied with Bottas as a number 2, or they need to pull someone out, and maybe, there's some very minor chance, and I guess Max just wants he's almost just saying, there could be other drivers as well that have that in their contracts as well. You don't know,
It's possible, yeah.
I think this is just the big one because it is Max, and because you constantly hear this about constantly how close they are, and the fact that Max and Red Bull are for life, and it's not just Christian's team or Red Bull, it's Max's team effectively, and so the fact it's popped up makes everyone go, oh, like, is it really? Is there cracks? Is he?
He's
so
they're not getting along anymore, and he's going to leave, and he's going to win the world championship with Mercedes when Hamilton retires.
He's packing his bags. He's not going to try. It's like, no, it's yes, it's something, but it really is just something that's should just be of note.
Yeah, and like I said, people just make it way bigger than I think it actually is. So, who knows if this is all based on the fact that Mercedes will drop, or Hamilton will leave Mercedes at the end of this year as well, which might not even happen, and I personally don't think will happen. Exactly. So, Max is still young. I'll be surprised if he stays with the entire one team his entire career. He probably will move teams at some point, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. All right, on to some Haas news. There's actually a little bit of Haas news here. Let's start with a good piece of news. So Pietro Fittipaldi has retained his Haas test and reserve driver status for this. I think it's second year, isn't it, for this year?
Second or third? It might be second.
It's 2 or 3. He's been there for a little bit now, so which is really good for him. He's had two races. He raced in the second Bahrain one, the Sakir Grand Prix, and Abu Dhabi. Is that right? For Formula 1?
He was in both, yes.
He was in both, yeah.
Because Grosjean was injured for both of them.
Yes, yeah, he was injured in the Bahrain, not the Sakir, yeah. So he's obviously raced in Formula 1. He's sort of just keeping his foot in the door. Hopefully he can... I don't know where he can find an actual full spot, but he's I
think he'd be fine where he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, possibly.
He's not going to argue being in that spot, and he sometimes does some media stuff as well, like with Will Buxton. So he's a good character to have around. I don't think anyone's seen this and going, "Damn, I wish they give X or Y driver a shot instead." I think most people are like,
"That's good.
Good on him."
Yeah, it's just good news. Gunter Steiner has come out and said he's to put 99% of the focus on the 2022 car by the end of February, which is now. So
shocked. Who could have seen this coming?
And the more I read into it, the more I saw that actually a lot of teams are doing this as well. It's not just Haas. Obviously with the big regulations coming next year, this year's it's really just a transition period, and a lot of teams that are lower teams, sort of like your Haas, and I guess even maybe your Alfa Romeos and your Williams, and teams that are sort of towards the back of the grid. You can't really see a reason why they would focus too much on this year's car when they could spend, they could just be like, okay, we'll have an average year and we'll go into next year way more developed. So, let your Mercedes and your Red Bulls and your midfield teams, let them develop the car to try and battle for this year, and we'll get a head start on next year. I think that's in the long term, it's probably the right plan. But it's a little sad to see those teams that are at the back are probably going to stay at the back for this year. So
it's kind of just a consequence of, or a negative of the decision, to delay the rules a year. If you think of it, it's kind of just like there's a prolong of some of some teams would have changed their plans up a bit, like with Alpine coming in, they would have changed up a bit, and same with Aston Martin.
Yeah.
But in terms of those teams that were maybe waiting out a bit, even McLaren, kind of, they've obviously got their new engine in, but they haven't really been able to integrate it that well, and obviously they were planning to integrate it with the new car from building it scratch up. From scratch rather.
Yeah.
So but it's although it'll be a negative from, I guess, our perspective in terms of seeing them on the track and maybe seeing them a bit slower, maybe a bit further behind than we'd like. In terms of the actual impact to the teams, it shouldn't be that great because it's mainly a carryover year. So if you don't spend a lot, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Even the teams that do want to spend a bit, they've only had those limited tokens they can use for devs, so it's not like they can just jump out if they want to.
That's true.
There's more of the cost cutting things coming in anyway, and even if they're waiting until the year after, then it's fully coming into play, and therefore, it's not like the guys who can spend a lot this year would really have a way to translate that too much into, stuff for the next year. So I think it's supposed to just a bit of a lag of these rules, but it's not necessarily going to be too bad for the teams themselves. Internally, they're kind of just waiting it out, almost like they're hiding out in the winter for it to pass, and then they'll come out and go full swing again.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, well, I mean, it's actually Haas probably have known they're going to do this for a while because in the same interview, Gunther Steiner came out and said that's one of the reasons why they took 2 rookie drivers as well. It's because they knew it was going to be sort of a transition year where they weren't, they probably weren't going to be fighting for those positions once again. So they're like, yeah, this is going to be a transition year. We'll get both drivers, used to Formula One, used to the car, and then really push, once they have a year in Formula One, we can actually develop the car for next year and try and push ourselves up the grid. So I think it's actually really, really smart from Haas to actually do it that way, the way that they've done it. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just means it's going to be another year where they sort of totter around at the back of the grid trying to beat Alfa Romeo. Probably that's probably going to be the team they'll fight. So
yeah.
Oh well, it is what it is. We'll hope for better days in 2022. So
yeah.
All right. And oh god, I hate that we're going to talk about this again. So we're going to talk about Rich Energy again. Although I guess
we'll talk a tiny bit about Rich Energy.
Talk a little bit about it. Actually, if you want to know about Rich Energy, I think Josh Revel just put out a video on Rich Energy. It was a really good watch, actually. So if you want to know all about Rich Energy, you can go watch his video. He uploaded it a couple of days ago, I think. So
as of recording, things about 3 days ago. And there's some older videos as well when the split first happened, people outlining in detail that kind of facade as it was happening. Yeah. So there's plenty of content out there if you want to learn.
Yeah. It's an intriguing story. But basically, if you don't know Rich Energy, I think we mentioned it. That's probably in the cut part of the video. Never mind, we didn't mention it. Rich Energy
totally discussed it.
Rich Energy was the title sponsor for Haas a few years ago, and it all sort of went a bit sour, and they're no longer the title sponsor. I'm just going to leave it at that. But basically, they've come out on Twitter. William Story, who's the CEO, has come out and said that they're coming back to Formula One, and they're going to be.
They have a kind of few steps allegedly they're going to come on in a small way, and then they have apparently done deal plans to then have a bigger presence in whoever they're partnering
which is a bunch of bull, because they keep saying, there's tweets that are saying the announcement coming today, and then it's like, oh, I can't say it today. We'll say it tomorrow.
Of an announcement.
Yeah, and then they come out with their announcement, and it's like, yep, we're coming back to Formula One. And it's just like, yeah, we knew that. Just tell us
the only real detail they gave is they were saying we're good friends with another company who's getting a big position soon, and then that company is gonna let us put our stuff on there too, and then we're going to take over that company or something. There's a whole lot of
it's they said they explored entering F1 as an 11th team as Rich Energy Formula One, but then they just decided to partner with an existing team. But yeah, like you said, they won't be the title sponsor until 2022, but one of
allegedly
what they called them an ally.
Yes.
Had
to
agreed
use the proper terminology.
Had agreed on a deal to take majority stake in the team for 2021, with Rich Energy becoming a partner for 2022. So it's still to this day. It's been like a week and a half since then, and still nothing's happened. So I don't.
It's not worth any more thought than a few minutes.
I mean, if you want to laugh, just keep an eye on the Twitter, because it's who knows what their next announcement's going to be.
They've just been putting screenshots, I think, out of their past bits, their sponsors, and
who knows,
ads and.
But yeah, definitely watch the Josh Revel video. Who even goes into a couple of possibilities of what team they could
if
be
something
acquiring
genuine was going to happen. What that could actually.
But yeah, very, very good video. Highly recommend. Let's look at something a little bit better than Rich Energy, which is anything. So there's an American firm called Sportech Acquisition Corporation, and they're looking at a possible F1 team entry as well. The co-chairman, who is Tavo Helmond, I probably butchered that, but he has strong links with F1. He, along with Michael Andretti, there were two parties that were looking at buying the Manor team when it was struggling back in 2015. So there were two of the parties involved in that. I'm guessing, obviously, neither of them went through with it. But Hellman said that he is interested in talking with Michael Andretti over a possible joint entry into F1, because obviously they were both in that deal. So, and Michael Andretti is, he owns Andretti Motorsport. He's big in, American.
The Andretti name is big in a lot of things. Yeah, it's big in America, but then
massive,
it's also got, minor teams and all sorts of different things across the world,
So, if that eventuates, I think that one probably holds more weight than the Monaco GP or Monaco Formula One team that we talked about last week or a couple of weeks ago. So, that one could be a very, very interesting. And having, another American team definitely, pushes them to have that second American race as well, because then you'll have Haas, and then you have this new team, and that just builds their relationship with America even more. Let's go to Ferrari. So Ferrari, we'll talk a little bit about their team launch in a bit, but I want to talk about one of the things that Mattia Bonotto actually mentioned. I think it was during that team launch, but basically he's saying that data suggests that Ferrari have gained a lot of time, or recovered a lot of speed. Because if you watched the 2020 season, they were really slow. Their power unit sucked, and their car was really, really draggy, and they just, the only reason that they did as well as they did is because Leclerc is a freaking madman and pushed that car beyond its limits. But yeah, it's needless to say, they had a really, really, they struggled in 2020. But apparently a lot of their simulations show that their speed has improved on the straights. They've been working a lot on the power unit and the aerodynamics to try and improve the power and drag reduction, or reduce drag. And shows they've recovered it, at least in simulations. We won't really know until probably preseason testing, but it's positive signs that they won't be quite as turd as last year. So maybe they can fight for at least the top of the midfield, possibly even maybe back to Red Bull. Who knows? We'll have to see. That might be a bit ambitious, but it's good to see at least.
It was only very minor. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but there was very, very a minor comment. I don't know if you saw Mick Casalo, who's doing some live stream or interview or something a few days ago.
I feel like I might have seen
he mentioned some line where he basically said that Ferrari and the effectively their power unit was actually, they had like a minor not a slap in the face, a penalty given to them effectively throughout the year because of their scandals in 2019, where they were apparently running on less fuel than everyone else for the year. It's effectively their way to say, that's your punishment for, we're not letting you get away scot-free, but we're not going to tell everyone what we're doing to you. And of course, it's come straight out after that where he said, oh, it's just a joke, or it was interpreted differently. But I still thought it was interesting that
I did see
it's
that
not just some random journo, it was Mika Salo, who's, he's still, in the Ferrari family.
Yeah.
So to say something like that is a bit of a joke. I don't know the full context. I just saw the clip come out. But it's still interesting to think, yes, they said they didn't do anything, and Ferrari's way, I guess, to pay their dues was they were going to help them do research in certain areas and use their technology to help, the FIA out with a few things that otherwise the FIA wouldn't be able to do, and that was their way to, I guess, pay the penalty. I guess it's still interesting to actually think about if there maybe was anything else, and I think something like this maybe seems a little silly, like going, you've got less fuel for all your teams, and that's your punishment. It's like, okay, well, there's probably other ways you could punish a team than that.
Yeah. I mean, why would it even come out now as well? Like, you feel like this sort of stuff would have come out
you feel like that would have been discovered somehow, the amount of data and things that people can pick up, that maybe someone would have suggested it rather than Mika suggesting it.
So maybe
it's a joke, apparently.
Maybe it was just like a bad taste joke, but it's
I still found it's funny. It's pretty funny. Least. It did get me thinking as well about how actually could they punish them differently. And
I don't know. Well, I mean, they had that thing where they were. I don't think it was. Was it deemed illegal? Where they were like burning the extra fuel to run it through the engine. Was that a couple of years ago? The oil burning thing. Yeah, the
oil burning was a thing, which I think they showed that they were within the rules to do, but then they kind of they cut that off.
Yeah.
The main thing was this fuel limiter thing where I believe they only had one sensor for the fuel limit, and they were finding a way to effectively learn how it works to then bypass how their fuel flowed through quicker than intended, but the sensor wouldn't pick it up. And I think as an adjustment now, they have two different sensors at two different points. So they basically can't do that anymore. I think was the general of what happened.
Okay.
So I think they technically didn't break any rules, which is why they kind of kept it under wraps, but they technically did, because they were kind of, working around how a piece of equipment was supposed to work, you know what I mean?
It's such a fine line. Like, I mean, you see with the, the Racing Point and them basically the whole scandal that happened with them basically copying the Mercedes car, and where's the line, and some of these teams, they're just trying to find where is the closest we can get to the line without breaching it. So
of course that's what they do best.
So there's always going to be things like this popping up where they're just like, well, it's a grey area, but it's not a black area, so it's probably fine.
I think this, given the nature of it, was very kind of like, okay, no, that's like, it's what they say. They've got like the hard rules, like the technical rules, and then they've got the sporting rules. What's against really what the sport is about, and that. You know what I mean? There's times you'll see them do things and you go, oh, like, really? Is that, and I think that's what people tried to do with the DAS system, where they tried to bring up, is it kind of ethically, is it sporting-wise really appropriate to have a wheel that moves in different directions? And I think everyone went, well, no, the gain is so minor, and to be honest, it is a pretty smart piece of tech that there's, no, not going to take it off them, but we're not happy with it long-term. We don't want, and as well, we don't want teams spending billions on it.
You see exactly the same, with the Brawn double diffuser as well. It's like, that was great for one season. They're like, this is, we can't really not allow it. It wasn't intention.
They wrote the rules so you couldn't do it, and they still technically found a way to do it. But it was once again, it was very smart wording of the technical. Well, as I said, this Ferrari thing was, it wasn't in the rules saying your fuel has to, flow through this sensor and do all this and all that. They went, our fuel's flowing through the sensor. It's like, well, no, that's really a sporting thing. It's like, no, that's really shady. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's...
If you found a way to somehow bring, I don't know, a bus into the race, and you went, no, but look at these rules, it fits. You go, no, that's not... No. Yes, technically you found a way to bring a bus, but it's not in the spirit of F1 at all. Get out of here. I
would love to see a bus in Formula 1.
Yeah, and I think that was the argument against Racing Point, Tracing Point, was saying, look, yes, they've technically done it, but really, you want your teams designing their own bits, and yes, we've seen things in the past where Haas have heavily based their car on the Ferrari and all that, but they still have their own bits. Well, this was kind of the real closest copy we've had. And it wasn't even a case of Mercedes kind of giving them the bits. They did it all on their own, and that's when I think this year especially, they've drawn the line and said, look, like, this is the max, we've seen it. We're not going to punish them for it. What they did punish them for, the brakes, was because it was a clear, direct break of the rules, you know what I mean? That was very easy for them to say, no, you didn't put this in your car in time, therefore you can't use this, that's... And therefore they got penalised for it. They were going to argue a bit before they went, it's fine, whatever, like, there's... Really, they'd have to spend a lot to get, anyone else to look at that and go, oh, no, actually, they are right, they've just, they read the calendar wrong and that's fine. Like, no. So, that's another thing where I think they've said, look, this is getting too close to kind of being against what F1's about. We don't want 10 cars that all look the exact same because, they've got this copying thing and want this inspiration thing, and that's why they've put in this new open parts thing as well. We're saying, look, we do want some degree of this to drop the cost so you're not all just having to do all this investigation to copy. Here's some open parts, actually.
Yeah.
So that discussion... There's tons of things there, but the main thing is wrapping it all around is Ferrari at least is saying very positive things, and of course they're going to say positive things. They're not going to go, oh yeah, it'll be a few years, but I think there's quite a lot of confidence that what they've run in their dyno and even their customer teams are going, we're excited for next year. We're excited to get a good engine back in there and actually not have to worry about trying to
for sure.
Work around a shitty engine.
Even Binotto has come out and said, I know obviously it's the start of the year and it's a little bit different, but he's usually pretty blunt about how their performance has been. Like if the car, if he thinks the car's not going to be, or the engine's not going to be good, he's just like, we have to be realistic. It's not that good. So the fact that he's again, I know it's the team launch and you have to be positive. You can't really say, well, it's still pretty shit. But he's usually pretty upfront about that stuff. So the fact that he's saying the signs are positive is I think really, really good. A last little bit of news, we can just touch on this. Guan Yu Zhou won the F3 Asian Championship, and he did it quite convincingly as well. So I actually looked at his results, and save for one race where he retired, I didn't look up how he retired, but I assume it was some sort of mechanical issue, or possibly he got into a tangle, but he didn't finish lower than 5th. So,
in a pretty competitive field, to be fair. Yes, it was Asian F3, but a lot of the junior drivers were doing that in their off-season from all sorts of series. It's not like it was your generic F3, so yeah. Yeah,
no, it's really good for him, and I think that's positive for him to getting the momentum going into the Formula 2. So obviously he's looking to make this push to Formula 1, and he started last season so well, and then sort of, had some, like I think you've mentioned before,
just kind of a level before the top guys.
Had a little bit of an unlucky season, and then maybe sort of dropped off towards the back end of the season. But he's starting off the year really, really strong. With winning a championship, that's got to be a good feeling. It's got to boost your confidence.
Of course, and of course Renault's renewed him for another year. In terms
absolutely.
of their academy, so they still believe in him, and this is another good sign for him to go to Renault and go, thanks for that. Look, this is I've still got it. Thanks for keeping me on. Let's let's do well. And they've gone, all right,
beautiful.
More of this.
Some validation. So
exactly.
So good luck to him. Obviously, we'll try and be following the Formula 2 and 3 a little bit. Which actually, speaking of, something I wanted to mention, I want to see if people would be interested in us doing sort of Formula 2, Formula 3 review led by Kyle himself, because you know a lot more about it than I do. I've only just started getting into it, but we want to sort of... Formula 2 and 3 has become such a big part in Formula 1 now, because obviously if you're going into Formula 3 and Formula 2, you're basically building yourself up for Formula 1, so we want to try and follow those a little bit more as well. So
those stories a bit closer, and I think as well, given the new format and how they're actually alternating between F2 and F3 as well, it'll be easier to kind of follow it, cover it, and watch it, rather than trying to juggle so many different things in one weekend.
Sure. So I think what we'll probably do we'll be doing sort of race weekend reviews for Formula 1, and I think we'll probably throw in whatever F2 and F3 races in that same video if we can do it as well. So, but if you want to see thinking about a video of like a lead up to the Formula 2, Formula 3 season, let us know if that's something you'd be interested in. I think there's a good chance we'll probably do it anyway, regardless of anyone wants it, because I think it'd just be cool to talk about. But I think that's all it's all the news I had by the looks of it. So let's talk about the car launches, car and team launches, I suppose. So being coming to the end of silly season, all the teams are starting to release their liveries and their new cars for the 2021 season.
New cars.
Some of them are not very new, but we'll get to that. We've had 4 launches so far in McLaren, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, and Red Bull, and then Ferrari had their team launch. I guess we'll just go in order. The first one was McLaren. It was like 2 weeks ago now. It was a long time ago. So back on Feb 15. We're recording this on the 28th of Feb, by the way, just for clarification. So McLaren announced their car first, and looks the same, doesn't it? You compare it, and it's.
I think they've. Yeah, this is already a. We'll say it, I guess, before we go into anything else, and it's probably why we probably won't go into too much detail, but. In terms of what we were saying before in regards to Haas about this being a carryover year, there are a few things that will change, and basically all the teams, those areas, they're not showing yet. They're going to go, well, yes, of course we've updated our car, we've spent our tokens, but we're not going to show you what it looks like, because there's only a few things, and it's not like it's a whole new thing. So this is mainly, I guess, just to start get the promo for the team going, if they have new drivers, if they've got their new lids, their new suits, maybe new sponsors, and I guess the biggest thing for the McLaren is the fact they've got the new engine in the back.
Yeah, I think that's where they spend most of the tokens.
Where they've got the renders, and you can see that the rear is different now, and you can also see how it's kind of been shoved in there a bit. It's not as nicely in as the Renault was, which is to be expected. There'll be I think they'd find more value in putting their development tokens towards a few other areas rather than just entirely putting them. I don't know, the major ones they spent were on the engine because that's what they had to do to put it in there.
Choice,
Yeah, so I think they're just going to shove it in there and then actually get it working this year, and then properly next year they can integrate, as we said earlier.
For sure.
So, look, it still looks fine. I know some people were like, oh, they didn't change the colours again, but I'm like, look, I think people get into too much of the habit of wanting every team to completely change everything up every year.
Yeah.
But I'm like, this is still a great-looking car. The blue and the orange is great. The sponsors still look nice. I'm not upset that it looks very similar at all.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we'll put pictures of all these cars up on the screen as well. It's probably already been put up, but I mean, anyone looking at sort of even big fans of F1, but definitely casual fans, you'll look at that and be like, yeah, that looks almost identical. And in terms of the color scheme and the livery, it's not much has changed, but yeah, like Carl said, I kind of agree that it's still, the color scheme works.
Yes.
So, why change if it's not broke? So,
yeah. I think I was going to say as well, from more a technical side, I think there wouldn't be much that we could say that others have already said. There's tons of great analysts out there that know all about the aero and tech would pick things up.
And that's not me.
I know the biggest thing. Yeah, the biggest thing of note, I guess, which is a change you can actually see, is there's a lot more venting around the place. So I guess that once again shows I've kind of shoved this in a bit, and they're opening it up a bit more than they'd probably like, just to make sure that it runs well. So,
yeah, sure.
But
that's about
it. Still looks good. I'm not upset. I'm not the biggest fan of them in terms of the teams that I follow, but I still look at that and go, that's nice.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, moving on to AlphaTauri, which is 4 days later, Feb 19th. They released their car. And I actually didn't watch the launch of this one. I've only seen the livery itself. But I guess in terms of the livery, they've kind of done, they've still got that sort of blue, that dark blue
similar
and
color
white.
Scheme,
yeah, very similar color scheme, but they've sort of swapped the colors. So there's more blue on the top rather than the white, which I've talked about this with you. I'm not sure if it's better or whether I like it more or less.
You need to see it out in the field. I think from some of the shots of Yuki out there with the car when they did their filming days. I don't know if it was with this car, with an older car, with the livery, but regardless, the livery running out there apparently looked really nice when it was out under the sun.
Yeah.
There's, you see shots of it in a studio, you go, oh, cool, it looks cool, white behind it. Then you see something out on track, and you go, oh dear.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's one of these cases. Apparently it looks, it's again, I don't think if this one changed, people would be too upset. If it didn't change, rather. I think the fact it has changed.
It's something, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's them, I was going to say it's them even just trying to remove themselves a bit more from Red Bull again. Even just a few years ago, you would have looked at AlphaTauri, which was Toro Rosso, and you would have been like, yeah, I can tell that they're the sister team of Red Bull, but now you can look at them like someone coming into the sport now, and you'd be like, they're not even associated. They're completely different teams.
You still associate them different. They're still, when you look a bit closer, you realise it, but it's not as you say, like BA to that degree as it used to be.
Yeah. I mean, I like that they've tried something different. I'm probably just looking at the photos. I think I really like the white looks clean, doesn't it? So I kind of like that being the more prevalent color, but maybe seeing it out on track, my mind can be changed. But
and its speed and such,
yeah. So, but at least they tried something different. In terms of the technical things, I don't know if you've seen anything. I don't really know what to look for when looking at that sort of stuff, but I didn't really notice
I don't
anything.
think there was anything too tremendous with this. Apparently on some of the renders, there was things that were a bit different in terms of the physical car that they unveiled. I think it was just last year's car almost, just with the different paint job, just so they could show the actual drivers unveiling it, which I always like that. Even if you're going to unveil the same car, I still like seeing the drivers come up and you see them in their new suits. Sometimes in this case, you got Yuki, it's good to see him there properly peeling it back. So I've always liked that aspect.
For sure.
From a show perspective, if we want to rate the show, maybe that's what we should do, rate the actual unveiling.
I guess we could. Well, I didn't.
I guess leads well into Alfa Romeo, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, all right, Alfa Romeo. They're the only one to actually do, I guess, a show so
what you'd
far.
Call a performance.
And full credit to them. They actually, a lot of people have been, upset at. It was a bit weird. I think most people can agree it was a bit of a strange launch, but credit to them for trying, actually putting on an event for it. Whereas, a couple of the launches were just like, particularly the Red Bull one. The Red Bull one was, we'll get onto that in a bit, but that was like a whole lot of, that was nothing. They basically did nothing for that.
It was like, just a reminder, we're still here.
Yeah.
Very good.
But yeah, Alfa Romeo, they did, the whole thing. They chat with their 3 drivers, so it's Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, and Kubica. So, and then revealing the car, and they made a whole event out of it. It was a little odd, but at least they tried.
It only felt odd because they were kind of the ones to do it. You know what I mean?
Possibly,
if you had a performance like this back in the 2000s, and some of those reveals they had, it'd feel right at home. So I think it's only because of I guess even the nature of COVID, and we're so used to things being online and not really any physical things. And I guess you'd used to invite, all your journalists to come around and see the unveiling and, see them all around taking their pictures and writing on their blogs, but instead it's all digital, and yet they've still chosen to run an event. So I think that's mainly why it feels a bit odd, but I still appreciated it.
Yeah.
I still wasn't totally sure of the angle they were going for. Like, I kind of got the colours and some of the dancing and that, but I didn't super get how it linked up to everything. I'm like, okay, what is this trying to show? Like, tradition, or is it trying to show beauty, or what is this trying to embody in the car other than just putting 2 events together? And I'm not against it, but I think they were. I didn't come out of it going, I get it.
They were. I think they were going for a tradition. I'm pretty sure they mentioned that in their show as well, from memory. Something to do with the whole tradition of of Alfa Romeo. I don't know.
I guess I can see how if I think Alfa Romeo, I go, yeah, that was pretty Alfa Romeo. I can make a link there.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about the car, because this is the part I'm most excited about. And of the cars that have launched, this is pretty. It's a really pretty car.
Yeah. Again, similar to that flipped concept almost. But in a way that actually go, ooh,
it's very nice. Yeah, they've sort of in parts of the car, mainly the main body of the car, they've sort of flipped the red and the white. And again, I'm a sucker for white. The white's a little bit more prevalent. It just looks really clean, but they got the white, red, and then sort of the black down the bottom. It just works really well, and it's very, very appealing to the eye. And I think so far it is. It's the prettiest of the cars to launch. So,
and it looks very full too. Like, you've got I think the engine box is nice, how they've woven a lot of their main logos on. But even when you look kind of towards the middle and then the front, they really do have a lot of sponsors splattered all around the place, and that always looks good for a team.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Sometimes you can have a bit too much, but I think it's nice. And even the black underneath, they've got a few white brands. It's just it's really nice. And it's nice. It doesn't look too busy. Like, it's busy, but it's a good balance. Busy.
Yeah, I agree.
In terms of the colors, you can have some where you just go, it's too much, Yeah. So this is nice.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and then the last car launch for now was like we mentioned earlier. It was the day after. It was the Red Bull one, and man, they were just like, "Hey, look, here's the car. It looks exactly the same. Okay, bye."
They're almost like, here's a reminder that we're not with Aston and we still like Honda, and that's it. It's like,
that was it, yeah. And I think they've even... I saw an article, was it yesterday, or a few articles, where basically they've, in their promotional pictures, they basically made parts of the car, the photos they've taken darker to cover up, Red Bull's been known for their secrecy of... hiding parts
and their camo
like
liveries and testing liveries. Sometimes.
So they've in their new cars, they've darkened parts of the car so other teams can't glean anything from it. So which I thought was interesting. I mean, fair play, they're allowed to do it, but
they're either going to darken it or just not have it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all part of the fun and games. And as you say, it was a very soft launch. It was, I think, just mainly the video. They didn't have any anything live or pre-recorded live, if you want to call it that.
But yeah, no, I don't.
There's not a lot to say, really. I'm more excited to actually see it on track with the drivers. You know what I mean?
That's the big thing. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's. I remember when this design with when they sort of made it the matte design and this sort of color scheme came out. I really, really liked it. So I'm not that unhappy that they're staying with it, but
it still looks like a nice car.
Good,
I think everyone wants a change up, and especially after years of them teasing changes up, and then you go, no, just for testing, and you go, maybe next year we'll get them, but especially this year, it's like no teasers. It's like we're just being straight up. Like, we got, it's the same thing. Let's go, and it's like, okay, well, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it keeps you in the mindset of them. They always get close to the end of the year, and then you see the year after they're back a bit, and then they try to climb back, and maybe this is, I don't know, it's a way of thinking, no, it's the same thing, let's keep going, and we're like, okay, I don't care if it's boring, if it's fast.
It's true. Good. Yeah, that's the main thing.
It's the best car, it looks great, let's go.
And then I guess the last the last actual launch, they had the Ferrari team launch, which we both sort of thought would be a whole lot of nothing, and it was a whole lot of nothing, because we already knew who the team was. So it was just
reintroduce the gang.
But yeah, they had basically just an interview with Mattia Binotto, and then there were Sainz and Leclerc beside. So Ferrari, hooray! I don't know. There's not much else I can say.
We'll see that car later on. I guess.
Nothing really happened. It was kind of weird. I don't know why they wouldn't do it all in one, but I don't know. Maybe it's a sense of pride that Ferrari's obviously a pretty, they're pretty prideful team. So maybe they want to put a lot of focus on their team, aside from the car itself. So, which is entirely possible. I don't know. That's just a thought. Who knows what they were.
They're leaving time for their excitement for their hypercar program today.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Hypercar podcast coming soon.
Hell yeah. The last little thing is, this is very, very recent. This only happened last night, but obviously that's the only launches that have happened so far. We've got sort of the next batch of launches coming. I think in 2 days we've got Alpine and Merc on March 2nd. So, and then we've got a run of about 4 in the space of 2 days. So by the time we do the next podcast, we'll talk about the rest of them. But last night, Merc decided to tease their new livery in a tweet and possibly other forms of social media, but I saw it in the tweet. I'll pop up the concept photo. They teased a very tiny part of the car a few days ago, and it was already, it showed that it was going to be the black design, but it obviously shows that they're sticking with the black car rather than going. My theory was that maybe they would go back to the silver arrows that they have been, but I guess with the whole I think we talked about it last week with Mercedes and Hamilton trying to push for the diversity thing. They've gone back to the black car, which fair enough, looked good. I really liked the black car from last year, so the fact that they're staying with it and even looks like they're possibly improving on it as well. So they've got the red for the Ineos in the air vent thingy.
Which they had last time at the top, and now that looks a bit more pronounced.
Yep. And then,
but it looks like it's almost like a I don't know if hybrid is the right word, but kind of like a combination of last year's car integrating with their new, their new.
Yeah, it's got this gradient.
Taking Ineos more. Yeah, and actually then still bringing back a bit of the silver.
Yeah.
So
we'll see.
It's a cool way to tease it. We haven't really, the kind of, I guess because they're very different enough. If the other teams kind of tease theirs in the same way, it would maybe give it away.
Yeah.
So I think maybe they're in a good position to tease it this way, where it's actually, this is cool. What I mean? It doesn't give too much away, but it's still
Yeah, will be interesting to see. I don't know. I'm looking at the gradient. I'm not, at least in the concept, I'm not sure that it works. But
well, yes, in this specific image, yes, it's.
But I can't judge on a concept. concept
No.
image, but obviously
It's still different,
Yeah.
though. Like, we saw when they released the black, and I think it helped the black look good, but
Yep.
it was still just a change regardless for a top team, which we quite like, you know what I mean?
for sure.
So I think even a little tweak on last... I think if they kept going with last year's, there wouldn't be too many irks, but the fact they're even tweaking last year's, I think is like, oh, this is cool.
It's cool.
Like, that's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, I'm definitely keen to see it in a couple of days. So, March 2nd, that'd be a good day with them releasing that one, and then Alpine with their full launch as well. I'm very keen to see that one. But I think the next, like these first four were, with Alfa Romeo being a nice surprise in terms of their car, and AlphaTauri sort of changing a bit, you know, most of it was to be expected. But the next sort of couple, particularly with Alpine and Aston Martin, probably the two big ones. That's coming up in sort of the second half of the launch schedule, I suppose. I'm very, very excited about the next ones, the next couple. So we'll see what sort of road they both go down. I'm not sure if Alpine are going to go with, you know, they've obviously got their testing livery, or their winter livery they called it.
their winter liveries, they called it, yeah.
I'm not sure if they're going to sort of stick with something like that, or if it's going to be drastically different. A lot of the times when they do testing or winter liveries, the actual livery is far different. So, but we'll see. That'll happen in the next podcast. But that's about all I have. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to talk about. This was a pretty long one today. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. So this is what happens when we leave it 2 weeks to record another one. So we'll try and get on top of that a bit more. But yeah, if you have any comments about anything we've talked about today, like I said, leave it in the comments. We'll might bring it up for discussion if you have a good point for the next podcast. We have a lot of videos in the works. Possibly one we might even do after this video. I don't know if you have time, but we might record another one, a little bit of a special video, something a bit different. And then we've also have to get on preseason testing stuff soon as well. So there will be a video coming out within... Man, it is soon that it's coming, isn't it? We'll have to do that really soon. Well, it's basically just talking about preseason testing and sort of our predictions for this season. So lots of videos in the works. Hopefully we'll be a bit more on top of it. If you want to follow our Twitter, you can follow that at Final Sector YT, or either of our Twitters. They would have been up on the screen. One thing I keep forgetting to promote, if you want to follow Kyle's Twitch, he does GT sports stuff. You're looking at... I'm trying to give you an excuse to stream more, basically, so I can watch more. But yeah, you stream a bunch of GT sports stuff. You do all the online, you know, events and things like that. So it's really fun to watch. You should go check it out as well. But yeah, I guess until next time, we'll see you for the next podcast or the next video. So thanks for watching all. Peace out.
Catches.